Good evening, and welcome to this edition of In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television. Glad you're able to join us for what should be hopefully a lively 90-minute conversation with candidates running for Richmond Common Council at large. These Wayne County In Focus candidate forums are being presented by Whitewater Community Television and our partners, the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce and Hometown Media Group. We will meet the folks that we'll be talking with this evening in just a couple of minutes. Some housekeeping things to tell you about. First of all, the people that we are about to talk with. If you go into the voting booth and you vote a straight party ticket, you need to make sure that you vote for them, because a straight party vote does not cover the at-large candidate. So just remember that, and know this week we do not have visual aids to help us out with that one. We'll just let that go. So remember, if you go into the booth and you vote for straight party, you still have to go in and vote for the candidates at large. In-person absentee voting, early voting has actually already begun. You can do that through November 4th at the Voter Registration Office, 301 East Main Street, Monday 8:30 to 5, also Tuesday through Friday 8:30 to 4:30, Saturday October 26th and November 2nd. You can do that from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. Also, just a reminder, in-person early voting, not absentee, but early voting will take place at the Coleman Center and at First English Lutheran Church. And if you are wanting to vote early for Milton or Dublin town councils, you can do that at the Coleman Center and First English during that early voting time. And then on election day, the centers that will be open, the Coleman Center, Mount Olive Baptist Church, First English Lutheran Church, First Baptist Church, and then for election day only, the Gull Lake Center. And again, you will be able to vote in any of those locations for whether you're voting for Richmond or Milton or Dublin. So if you happen to be in the Richmond community and you're over in Cambridge City and you want to vote that day, you can do it at the Gull Lake Center. So just a reminder, the Wayne County Clerk's Office has made this a lot easier for people to do, and we appreciate their efforts all throughout this particular election season and all the help that they have given us. Next week, just a reminder, we are going to have another 90-minute In Focus candidate forum. There will only be 3 candidates, those running for City of Richmond mayor. We will start at 6 p.m. as we do with all of our In Focus candidate forums. And we'll spend 90 minutes taking your questions for those candidates. And if you want to get your questions in early, you can do that by sending it in advance to WCTV at iue.edu. Get it to us by Wednesday, and we'll definitely make sure to get it on. We are taking your questions during this live In Focus candidate forum, so we'll put some information up on the screen in just a couple of minutes. We've got 5 folks that we need to talk to. There are 6 running for council at large. One of them on the Democrat side, Nick Dunlap, was not able to be with us this evening. Paul Witte is here with us representing our partners, the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for coming back and doing this again.
My pleasure.
Our candidates running for Richmond Common Council at large, Yvonne Washington, Sue Roberson, Jane Bumbalough, Ron Oler, and Larry Parker. Thank you all very much for being here. Thank you all very much for being willing to put your name on the ballot and face the voters. Not everyone is willing to do that.
Well, thank you for having me.
Glad to do it. We're going to go around, give everybody a minute to 90 seconds to kind of introduce themselves. Yvonne, we'll start with you.
All right. My name is Christella Yvonne Washington, and on your ballot it will appear with my first initial, which is just a C. I decided to run for office because after spending years in human services helping individuals arise over challenges and issues regarding employment, health issues, transitional things, I had to begin to come up with solutions for systems that were impacting individuals. And as a result of working with systems long enough, rising to the occasion to run for Richmond Common Council was just a natural elevation for me.
Thank you. Sue?
Hi, my name is Delphia Sue Roberson, and I appear on the ballot as D. Sue Roberson. And I have 28 years of experience in government. 24 of that is in executive management on both the state level and the local level. I have written policy both on the local level and the state level. I have been involved in putting together ordinances as well as state legislation and talking to legislators and local council people when it comes to the legislation or ordinances that were put together. I was one of those people that said I couldn't wait to retire because then I could do the things I wanted to do. And I have been retired now for about 3 years. And I decided that I wanted to run for office. And I used to always say I was going to come back home and run for office. So I'm back home and I'm running for office.
Jane?
Hi, I'm Jane Bumbalough, and I am the daughter of Herbert and Mary Lawman of Richmond, the late Herbert and Mary Lawman. I've been married to my husband Jim for 35 years. I have 10 children and 10 grandchildren with 2 more on the way. I lived in Wayne County all of my life. I've served on the governing board for the Wayne County Health Department, the clinic portion. I've served on numerous committees throughout the community and volunteer. I have 3 children who have served in the armed forces, and I'm very, very proud of all my kids. All my children have graduated and have attended college, and 5 with degrees. I love the community. I've been asked by the Republican Party to consider running, and after a lot of prayer and counsel with friends and family, I knew in my heart I care so much about our community, and I want a chance to give back and step up and serve. I thank you.
All right. Thank you, WCTV and the Wayne County Area Chamber of Commerce, for working together to produce these election discussions. I hope everyone gets a lot of good information out of them. I'm Ron Oler. You'll see me as Ronald M on the ballot. With blessings from my wife of 35 years and high school sweetheart, I'm seeking the 3rd term Richmond Common Council at large. As a lifelong resident of Wayne County, I care deeply about our community. I grew up on an Oler family farm near Williamsburg, where you learn the value of hard work and due diligence, and those are skills I bring to public administration. During the day, I'm a professor in the School of Business at Ivy Tech and a director of 2 sites. During my tenure, the last 2 terms on Richmond Common Council, I've served as president. I've chaired the city's finance committee through 4 controllers, 2 mayors, several department heads. I've served the RP&L as the RP&L board chairman and various other committees related to finance and economic development. It's been my pleasure to work on economic development projects over the last 8 years that have brought hundreds, if not 1,000, good-paying, high-quality jobs to our community. As liaison to the Economic Development Corporation and a member of the Tax Abatement Committee, we've created significant opportunities for a lot of firms to expand in our local community and come to our local community. So I'm looking forward to addressing some more of those questions as we go through tonight.
Larry Parker.
Thank you. First of all, again, thank you, WCTV and Wayne County Chamber of Commerce, for putting on this event this evening. My name is Larry Parker. I'm a lifelong resident of Richmond, Indiana. I'm married to my wife, Gayla. We have 2 adult children and 2 grandchildren, and I have been previously been on City Council. I'm active in my church. I have presently am serving on the board of directors of the Economic Development Department as the secretary. Last year I was the treasurer of the Economic Development Department. I've been on the RP&L board and previously, of course, on City Council. I've also been on the directorship of Indiana Municipal Power Agency and Reed Memorial Hospital, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Again, if you have a question for these candidates, we are taking your questions on Twitter at WCTV Info, also on our Facebook page, where you can give us a call, 973-8587. We're going to get into the conversation. Paul has got the first couple of questions up.
Okay. Well, as a representative of the Wayne County Chamber of Commerce, I'm just curious how you see us working together in the coming years. And I'm just going to
We'll start with Larry. We started over here with introductions.
Well, one of the things I think that we can work together with is downtown Richmond. I think that's one of the big things right now that we need to get settled. The Elder Bierman building has to be sold, and we need to have an anchor down there. The Chamber can help us with through EDC and through the City of Richmond in the sale of that building. And I think that we need to make sure that we not only take care of downtown Richmond, but we also have to shop Richmond and take care of our other retail outlets. The shopping centers are something that we cannot afford to lose either. The tax base of downtown Richmond and the tax base of the shopping centers are something that we cannot afford to lose. So I think we can work together in that regard.
Thank you. Ron?
Thank you. I've worked with the Chamber in various capacities for a long time. Even before I came on City Council, in my role at Ivy Tech, we served on the Education Committee at the Chamber. We ran college for a day at the campus and had a really good time. Served as, while on council with the Chamber, served on the Leadership Committee, the Issues and Advocacy Committee, so always happy to work with the Chamber. Larry's right, the businesses, supporting local businesses. We need to partner up more, see what else we can do. Chamber does a really good job of getting the businesses together and getting council people, community leaders together and come to the table and talk. So one of the things I think we've done well and will continue to do well when we have an ordinance come before council, whoever is our leadership appointment during that term is always happy to come and talk to the Chamber committees and make sure we're doing the right things that'll help the local businesses. And we plan to continue that, definitely.
Jane?
Okay, well, the first thing is to get to know one another very well, because since I'm new, it's important for me to get to know the people involved. And I think that as we get to know one another and we discuss the issues at hand going on in the community downtown with businesses, I think that we can work together, get ideas. It'd be wonderful to bring in new businesses. I've heard Ron share about all the new businesses that have already come to town, but I think the most important thing is the relationships. I think as we build great relationships with each other, we can discuss these issues and work together to make it better.
Thank you. Sue?
I believe in people coming together and working together and forming community. And one of the things that I've liked to see is that the Chamber has included agriculture as one of their areas and embracing the farmers. I believe that helps us address things like the hunger issue in this community, and that's the way the Chamber can work with other people who do things like that in this community. I think it's all important not only for us to know what our constituents think, but it's also important to know what the businesses see as those issues for them. And we may not always agree, but sometimes we can at least get to the point of agreeing to disagree, to where it's still a friendly atmosphere. I know that right now there's quite a bit of tension between the city and some business owners, and particularly some of the smaller business owners. And hopefully, as leaders of the community, since we would be elected by people to represent them, that we could help be Switzerland. You know, sometimes in our family, someone has to be Switzerland. Right. And so that you can talk, work together, and we become community.
Yvonne?
I think that we could work together to do more as far as identifying creative business initiatives, maybe walking away from some of the traditional things and getting more research on what's going to be a priority over the next 10 years, the next 20 years. I'd like to see us learn more about green energy industries, and I think that we can do more with tapping into the resources that are available for minority businesses and incubators of that nature. I served on the President's Minority Attainment Council at IU for about 7 years. And there are federal and state funding initiatives that are available that would help build up all of our citizens.
Okay, great. And as a follow-up, Sue, I'm going to start with you on this one since you mentioned tension between, maybe some businesses and the city. What kind of things should Richmond do to support the growth of our existing businesses, both small and large?
Well, I think one of the things we already do is abatement. The other thing, and I was talking to some of the present council members, like Belden, we have a drug problem in this community. And one of the things Belden has is a nationally recognized program to bring people into work. Why don't we give a tax incentive to Belden for that? As we see things that employers can do to improve the workforce, then they need to be rewarded for that as well. And I believe we have to do more of thinking outside the box. People now, I did HR for a number of years, and people now, they want flexibility. If they decide they want to take 4 months off to be with their kids, that's what they want to do. While us as employers, we're sitting around saying, gee, we wish you'd come to work sometime, We've got to think of ways to embrace that, because that is how the youth is feeling when they're coming to work. Or they also want to do things that address a problem. And you see even teenagers starting businesses around that. And I think, to Yvonne's point, the Chamber and EDC and the Innovation Center should do more around entrepreneurship, because that is the wave of the future. I hope I answered your question.
No, you did. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Now, I'm just going to go counterclockwise here. So,
What was the question again, please?
it was what could Richmond do to support the growth of existing businesses, both small and large? And the reason I'm following up on that is, Sue mentioned a little bit of the tension between the city of
Sure.
Richmond and businesses.
Okay. Part of the tension that I've seen as an employee in 7 or 8 different business areas is that we went through a phase where people were just working their way up because they had been at a business, they made money, they had the skill set, and they were being promoted into different areas. And then we went through a phase where people were basically hiring their friends. And when we changed over as far as generations getting younger and thinking differently, like Sue said, okay, we have people now who are hiring their friends, but maybe their friends don't really have the skill set that we need to serve in those positions. So they're not as effective. So I think we should do more work as far as keeping up with what skills are current for this generation. She mentioned the young people. They are more interested in their personal branding than in working 9 to 5 and suffering through hard times and being elevated based on what they've earned. They want more recognition now. They need more one-on-one feedback. So seeing us make those adjustments to eliminate some of that frustration within the businesses.
All right. Larry?
Well, one of the things I think we can do for the larger businesses, of course, is through EDC. There are grants available not only for training, but for any type of expansion. They're willing to work with any of the businesses that are willing to expand. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be a huge corporation in order to use EDC. Anybody's available to come to economic development and see what they can do for them. As far as the smaller businesses like downtown, for an example, one of the things I really truly believe we need to do is we need to provide some low-cost interest loans for the downtown business people for fixing up of their facades out front of their building, as well as perhaps even the lighting inside. I don't want to give a grant. I don't want to give money away. But I do think that we can use the citizens' money that we have already taken into the TIF fund, and we can use some of that money to give low-cost loans for those businesses downtown. And I think that would be a big help for those people.
Thank you.
As Larry mentioned, one of the keys of the Economic Development Corp is business retention and expansion, grants and tax incentives, and we partner with them all the time for tax abatements as a business is expanding to retain them, both large and small. One of the things the city doesn't do very well, but is getting close to working on, is communicating better with businesses. Our new software system, enterprise-wide system, will soon allow for online permits, and that'll make life a lot easier for businesses wanting to do business with the city. The other thing we're in the middle of is revising our Unified Development Ordinance, our UDO. So that'll help everyone know what is what in what area and what's permissible without having to go through the appeal process of zoning. And lastly, we're working on a master plan. And the master plan will help us have a master plan to know that this is what we want to focus on in this area. So for example, downtown, we've allowed it to become an opportunity zone for federal tax credits. So that'll help us market some of the properties downtown. So we'll continue to do that kind of stuff and really communicate better with businesses what the city's expectations are, and the businesses communicating with the city what their needs are.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Once again,
Okay.
can you ask the question all over
Yeah,
again?
yeah, it's what kinds of things should Richmond do to support small and large businesses?
Well, number one, I think of shopping locally to support the businesses. One of the things that's come across to me as I've interacted with the community is we need to make sure we're business friendly. We need to make sure that we welcome different thought, different ideas into our community. We need to be welcoming. You know, when you think about going even to visit somebody at their home, you can get a sense of welcome. You can get a sense of dissension, and we can't fake it with people. We have to have a genuine interest in people and genuine hospitality for those coming into the city. And I think it begins within the city, between the businesses, between the administration, the government, the people. If there's tension between the government and the people, businesses that come in, they're going to sense it, they're going to see it. And the relationships that start within the community now as we have it, as we work out our differences and we learn to embrace diversity, because it's a good thing, you know, it's colorful. I love it. But we need to have that base so when people come in the community, they can get a sense of I want to be part of this. So it's just very important to do that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're watching the In Focus Candidate Forum on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're speaking with candidates running for Richmond Common Council at large. I want to do just kind of a quick follow-up on a couple of things that I heard. We'll start with Jane.
Okay.
A couple of times already, there's been mention of things that need to be done for businesses, or particularly in the downtown area, and I know that that's the heart of the city. Do we as a city run the risk of alienating some of our other small businesses in other places by focusing so much of our time and conversation on the downtown area? And it just happened here with council members. So how does the city not do that? How do you focus on, yes, the heart of the city, and we spend a lot of money and a lot of time down there, without alienating businesses that aren't in that area or who choose not to put their business in that area?
Right. There's, you know, we have to be careful of, I'm going to use this term, but favoritism, because there's certain areas of the city that might be focused on a lot more than other areas, and I know that that's been a problem. There's, you know, people have come to me and talked about, you know, we look at our different parks around the city. Some tend to get a little more attention than others. Then you look at, you know, downtown. There's a lot of attention downtown, but we have an awesome community, lots of opportunities around our community. And I think it's just very important that we look at it as a whole. We need to address the issues, but we also have to remember to celebrate the successes. it's important to do that because there's a lot of people that put a lot of work into our community. We can be so focused on the things that aren't happening that we neglect to continue to applaud and encourage those things that are successing. And we also can draw on the successes in Richmond. We can draw on those. We can draw on the ideas. We can draw on longevity of a business and learn and grow. Ask questions about those businesses. Implement them on the small businesses. We can learn from each other.
Well, Eric, I want to disagree with you slightly here for a second.
Go for it.
Because I think we've done a good job of focusing on the other areas. We've spent a lot of money in the last 20 years in the Depot District, and we have something really nice there. And we spent a lot of money on the east side of town. We spent a lot of money in the industrial parks. Back to the east side of town, when the tornado came through, we were there. The city first responders were there to help the cleanup and recovery. I think we have for too long neglected the downtown. I don't think we've put enough into it. That's why it's mostly empty. So I'm going to disagree and think now's the time we're focusing on the downtown because we need to fix it, make it right. The malls are doing fine, the industrial park's doing fine. I haven't heard from any businesses that feel like they're being neglected other than maybe some communication issues. But I think where we do need to focus for the next few years, the next season, if you will, is the downtown. Or what's left there will be gone too, and then what do we do?
Well, the low-cost loans could be available to any business here in the Richmond area. And of course, Redevelopment Commission will talk to any business that wants to talk to them and ask for assistance in aiding their business to grow and to prosper, as well as Economic Development is willing to talk to any of the businesses that want to grow and expand. And I think that Ron is right, that we have probably neglected our downtown, and we don't want our downtown to turn into a Newcastle, where you drive down the street of Newcastle and there's one store open every block. So we can't afford anything like that to happen. But there are availabilities for other businesses throughout the community, and I think all they have to do is just find out, call the city and ask what's available for them if they're needing some help and some assistance. RP&L just a few years back had a lighting program that was available to all the businesses and all the people that wanted to take advantage of it. Some did, some didn't. But there are very many facilities available to the businesses if they'll just seek them out.
I would suggest we pay attention to different areas, maybe in phases. Set a time limit or a dollar amount, so that we can rotate where the attention needs to go to bring everybody up to speed. I hear Larry talk about the funds that are available through EDC and revolving funds, so maybe some type of education about that process so that everybody has access to it, everybody has an understanding of what's expected, and we don't have funds that are being distributed to the same types of people, same types of business repeatedly, and other areas being neglected.
Okay. So,
It's about time that we do something with our downtown. Even if you look at small town America, they work on their main street because that's the heart of the city. I couldn't imagine being Valerie Schaefer and bringing some company in and say, oh, this is our downtown. This is the heart of our city. It's not beaten. I mean, it needs to be upbeat, there needs to be bright colors, there needs to be people. I love it when John and his buddies are sitting out in front of John's frame shop and just chatting, because that says to people, you can do that in this city. We have got to do something with our downtown. And as Ron mentioned, we weren't shy about the Depot District. I mean, we've put money in there, and there's still more money to go into the Depot District. We're not shy about not doing anything from North A to Whitewater River for the north side. That has been so neglected. It really gets me upset, but I'm going to calm myself down here.
okay.
But we do have to do something with our downtown. If we don't, people don't want to come here. Why would you want to come here? even now, whenever EDC comes, they don't take them to our downtown, they take them to the Depot District. So, you know, what are we going to do?
If I may, one thing Yvonne said I wanted to add was the revolving loan fund board. I've served on that board for several years, and we have over $1 million available for gap funding. I think we've only met twice this year because people aren't coming and asking because I don't think they know about it. So our revolving loan fund board is gap funding. So if you want to buy an existing business and you have money, the bank has money, but you need another 20% of it, we're there for you. Just call Beth Fields and Infrastructure Development and get an appointment and get on our agenda. We have forms to fill out. We have money to loan.
You're watching the In Focus Candidate Forum on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We have some questions piling up, I'm being told in my ear, so let's start, if we can, with the long question, the chat question that we got in. First, we're going to start with a map, just to kind of explain the area that we're speaking about, or that the question is asking about. Not the map? Okay. That's okay. We need to zoom in because I think the question revolves around districts 3 and 4. So we're going to take a quick look at those areas, and then there's a question that came in that focuses a little bit on those particular areas. Taking this into consideration, residents in the neighborhoods north of US 40 are less likely to participate in the democratic process. Okay, okay. When looking over the city council district maps, the boundaries of the areas surrounding 3 and 4 in the neighborhoods north of US 40 seem to be underrepresented because of US 40, especially in District 4. Data supports that lower income groups vote at a much lower rate than higher income groups. Then, taking this into consideration, now we're there, residents in the neighborhoods north of US 40 are less likely to participate in the democratic process, allowing the much larger area south of US 40, which contains some of our wealthier neighborhoods, to dominate our representation. Still not there yet. Okay. If council members are to serve the best interest of their constituents, the current breakdown of the districts makes it appear as if those on the north side of Richmond are at a disadvantage. What are your thoughts on realigning the district lines to ensure that all citizens are equally represented? Now, that was a long way to get there, but kind of needed to show you the breakdown. They are talking about, and we have District 3 and 4 up a little bit, so the suggestion is doing some realigning of the districts to make things work a little bit better. We've just kind of thrown that one out there. Mr. Oler, we'll start with you.
Sure, why not? First thought is, we're at large and we serve the whole city. I don't care which
But you all
district
would
live
have
in.
3 votes if there was some redistricting that needed to be done. You all would probably need to vote on that. So you would have some say if that came to council.
I don't see why.
It's a question from a resident.
I don't think anybody's being disenfranchised. They have an equal voice. It disappoints me when we have the council meetings and nobody's in the audience. Council meetings are open. Come and talk to us at large. Call us, email us, get involved, get active, get out there and vote. And there's no really district weighting. There's one representative for each district of the 6 districts, so I don't know. There's no advantage or disadvantage for a resident to live in one district over the other, because District 3 rep has no more voting power than District 4 rep. They still have 1 vote each.
Right.
So I don't see the disparity, unless I know there may be less populated areas, and maybe they feel like they have a weaker voice, but honestly, if you come to the council meeting and speak, and if you call us and speak, we'll listen to you. I don't understand. If somebody's been disenfranchised, I'm sorry. How's that?
Okay, it's not my question. I'm just.
Well, each district has 4 representatives. They have their district representative, and then they have the 3 at large. So every district in Richmond has at least 4 representatives that they can go to and talk to and ask for or complain or anything they have to mention to us. As far as the areas of it, the one reason why the areas are larger than the others is just simply because of population. they can be redistricted, but only by population. So, you know, I don't know how we can possibly make them any more fair, because each district is by population, and that's
Density, yes.
density of that district. I think that, you know, everyone has an equal representation on council.
Okay. Anybody want to weigh in?
Well, I would say taking a larger look at the way the districts are cut up right now and reviewing that density of population to make sure that the districts are fairly divided and have, you know, equal representation, equal opportunities as far as resources. And I don't know how often those reviews would occur, but that would be my suggestion.
Well, I think it happens after every census.
It's every 10 years.
Every 10
Right.
years.
10
Okay.
years it's
So,
addressed. Yes.
A lot of
it would
things can
have,
happen in 10 years.
right, it would be after the 2020 census, if it gets done in 2020.
Okay, maybe 2022.
I understand
That's an
that.
even bigger question. But my response to that is the numbers are the same for the precincts. If a logical person looks at that, and I consider myself sometimes logical to a negative, does it make sense to draw the lines differently? To me, yes. But it's still not going to be any different. It has to be this many people in each precinct. One of the things that I think we have to do as council members is to go into the neighborhoods, not wait on people to call us
Right.
and to come. We have to go and ask, you know, what is going on? What would you like to see? And that's one of the things I liked to see in the Fort Wayne County. They're in the process of doing a survey, and they went out and they asked everyone. I like the fact that Reed Hospital does an annual survey, and you can kind of look at that and get an idea of what's going on in the community. But again, I think we as elected officials have to make, if elected, I have to make myself available to the constituents. And, you know, sometimes that means boiling up some hot dogs and inviting them to Mount Olive's parking lot, or, you know, going to the Baptist church there on South A, and, you know, doing something there. Or you could do something at the Gannett Mansion, or you could just walk, you know, in the store or whatever. But we have to get out to the people. Part of the problem with 3 in particular is that 80% of that is rental property. So, and it tends to flip over, particularly that area, because isn't like from South A and like 16th over to the park, mostly that's rental property. Mostly rental property, and
True.
it turns over twice in 30 days.
Oh, sure.
I mean, it's even
Yes.
hard to register people to vote, because when you register people to vote, when it's election day, that's not going to be their address.
Right.
So, you know, that's just inherent. That's an issue with Richmond, period, is how much rental property we have in terms of residential.
Okay. Jane, any thoughts?
I would ask you to repeat the question, but it was very long.
But I'm trying.
I'm trying to remember the gist of it, about moving the lines of the districts. The first thing that came to my heart was, we can move lines, but it doesn't change people. I mean, the change begins within the person. We can change districts, we can change lines, but the problems will still exist. If they're having a hard time getting out to vote, or if they have a problem getting, having transportation, period. I really believe that those areas are worth addressing. There's a lot, it's like what you shared, Sue, that a lot of rental properties, a lot of people in the rental properties, they don't have transportation. And nobody is in control over what family they're born in, their economic status when they're growing up, and that's something that we all need to be mindful of. And so I think that it's true, we need to be available. We need to be available for everybody, no matter where the lines are, address the issues, and also, be willing to be available to drive someone. I actually am available to drive people if they need to be driven somewhere. So I think it begins with the heart of the person.
Okay. We have a couple more questions that have come in, so let's try to get those in. People have taken the time to want to ask you a question. Let's try to get them an answer. How will you work to address and combat climate change and make sure Richmond is prepared for the effects of a changing climate? Mr. Parker.
Well, first of all, I don't think that Richmond can do much about changing the climate. The things that Richmond is doing right now, though, RP&L, of course, through the IMPA, Indiana Municipal Power Agency, is putting up all the solar panels. So that's a help for the climate change. That's eliminating a lot of the CO2 that's going into the air, and we will have cleaner electricity from that way. Other than that, I don't know how that Richmond can change the climate.
Yvonne?
Well, I had some thoughts. When I reviewed the plans for the Townsend townhomes that were proposed about 10 years ago, as I looked at the research that was done, the diagrams, and saw some things that could be moved around, some of those plots have been designated as community garden areas, but it seemed to be several. And as I talked to the residents there, I thought maybe we could reduce half of those community garden plots and add the solar panels to that area and to the housing, so that would increase the value of those properties, lower the energy, the usage, the prices for the utilities, and then also create an income source so that we could sell energy back to the grid from that area. That's one of the things that we could do. We could become an example of the green energy, being energy efficient in that way.
Sir?
Well, number one, I appreciate the fact that RP&L didn't go back to generating electricity with coal when some of those regulations had been lifted and they possibly could have gone back to generating with coal. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that they're doing the solar panels. I believe that we need to expand our recycling. And one of the other things that I would like to see is a expanded compost where places like Reed and other restaurants can send things that are not like meat but like their vegetables that they're getting rid of and stuff could go off and be composted, and that could be used then by people in their gardens. It's something that we have to keep working at. And I think, I'm just going to say me, as an old person, sometimes thinks that, boy, that's a lot of work. But then I think how I was when I was 20, I would have been mad at the old people like me because I would say, they're not thinking about me when I get old. I think it's something we have got to be conscious of. I think it's something that we have to do for our children. And I'm telling you, there are a lot more of our children who are worried about the the environment than some other things, because they had this vision of the world just being horrible and not being able to breathe or be outside when they're grown. And so I think we've always got to look for solutions that would allow us to be more green.
Can we see that question again?
Brian, the last question can you put up, which I think was basically asking what can Richmond Common Council do to potentially affect climate change?
Well, if I think of the question differently, from climate change to being responsible with our resources, I probably have a better understanding. I think it's important that we take care of the things that we have. I appreciate the fact that we are getting the solar panel and using our natural resources for energy. I think it's just important to be responsible with our possessions, responsible with, they are continuing to make improvements on our automobiles and the exhaust. That's important. Recycling, like what you had mentioned, is very important. So I think that there's just common sense, everyday things that we can do to help keep our environment clean, and that in and of itself is going to make a better quality of life for our neighbors and ourselves.
When I came on the RP&L board 8 years ago, looking into how electricity is generated in the United States, over 52% of our electricity was coming from coal. In just 8 short years, we've cut that down to about 42%, somewhere in that range. I may not have the exact number, by using other resources, and we're moving that needle. The other thing, besides the solar parks, which are obvious, if you have an electric vehicle, there are no charging stations in Richmond. We're really close to changing that. We'll be in discussions with some businesses where we can, and even the city, where we can put some EV charging stations. So there'll be in the next year's budget are some EV charging stations around the city, including a Tesla superchargers, because there's a Tesla dealership in Dayton now. So we're a gap between Dayton and Indianapolis, so we'll have that. But also we'll see next year's RP&L budget an electric car, fully electric car for the staff to use. The old 2010 Honda Civic hybrids are going away because they're worn out. So now we're going to start to add to electric fleets. So that's what we can do. We can be smarter and try to not pollute as much.
And I think there's one more question that we have gotten through social media, so if we can see what that one brings us. What is the one issue or policy you would like to champion on council if elected? What is the one issue or policy that you would like to champion on council if elected? Yvonne, we start with you on this one.
Increasing our funding streams, investigating different ways to produce income for the city. As I listened to the budget hearings and heard about the government buildings that need repair, and the fountain that needs to be replaced because it's expensive to repair. As I look down the different revenue streams, I wonder what else we could do to bring in new income into the city budget.
Probably the first thing that I would look into, I saw just this week that Muncie was able to place their first tiny houses for homeless people. I know that tiny houses is an issue in terms of our zoning and planning, and I am appalled at the number of homeless people we have in Richmond. Most of them are called couch surfers because what they've done is found a different couch to sleep on every night. But there are a number of families, I'm saying people with children, because we don't have a family shelter in this city, who are living in their car and parking where they can. I think that tiny houses might be an answer for the homeless and housing issues that we have. That gives people something that maybe they can maintain, because we have a number of people who are working 2 and 3 jobs and still not making enough money to support themselves and their family.
Okay. Jane?
Well, the number one thing I thought of is the opiate crisis that faces many communities. I have one of my children survived an opiate crisis, and she's been clean for almost 4 years, and that has gotten me involved in volunteering at a local recovery center. That affects so many aspects of the city, not just, it affects the individual. But even though she's my child, it affects the family, which affects the community. It affects the jobs. It affects everybody. So that is very important to tackle that crisis, because it's affecting our ready workforce. If we want to bring in businesses, the young adults need to be educated. If they're affected by drugs in the home, how are they going to get how are they going to get educated? Kids go to school and they have all these burdens from what's happening at home, but yet they're expected to excel in school. Like I said, it affects the workforce. It affects, the living conditions. Then you have the blighted houses. Then you have the broken homes. Then you have, it affects every aspect of our culture. Everybody's affected by it. One person affects the whole community. So that is something I'm very passionate about. I don't thank God that it happened, but I thank God that good has come out of that in my life because of what's happened. It's made me more aware, more concerned.
Okay. Ron?
My priority, and the city always has been and will be, is focusing on the essential services we need to provide to the citizens. Government exists, in my opinion, to provide a service to the citizens they cannot or should not provide for themselves. We provide streets, roads, police and fire protection, and we provide some parks too, some nice green spaces. One of the problems we have is, in our budget, those circuit breaker credits, tax credits. We're going to lose $5.5 million next year from that alone. Cities like Indiana, and I even voted for it a long time ago, I didn't know any better. So that 1%, 2%, and 3% tax cap on your properties. Before that, cities in Indiana were averaging 1.57% per parcel. And you take a city like Richmond, 80% of its properties are residential, suddenly those are cut down to 1%. So just in our general fund alone, we're not getting $3.3 million next year. That years past before this, we would. And we'd be able to do a lot of, I don't want to call them fluff things, but a lot of the things that aren't necessarily essential, but nice to provide. So we need to make sure the city continues to focus on doing the things that need to be done, getting the right businesses here, lifting the whole tide, lifting the whole boat, everyone. Better jobs for everyone. So we need to lift that whole boat. One of the things you may not know in our budget, because we don't have a casino here, we receive over $250,000 in riverboat distribution from the state because we don't have one.
Because
here.
we don't have
Because
one.
we don't have one.
That's good to
Now, if we
That
had
is
one, like
very
my friends at Lawrenceburg do, we might have $20 million in revenue. I'm not advocating for gambling. I'm not advocating for casino.
Sounds like it.
Let downtown.
I'm just saying.
Please no.
Sorry.
Put it on the pond.
Viewers may appreciate this, may not know this. Watch the election in November 5th in Vigo County, Terre Haute, because there was a casino license that was freed up in Gary, Indiana, and they're voting to get it. So we'll know November 6th whether or not Terre Haute gets that new casino, the first new casino in Indiana for a long time. If they turn it down, then we'll listen to our citizens as to what they want to do, if they want to vie for it. I don't know. My guess is they won't turn it down, knowing Terre Haute, Vigo County. But that's just it. If Yvonne talked about increasing revenue, I'm not in favor of raising taxes.
No.
I am in favor of making sure we're using them to the best of our
Yes.
ability.
Yes.
Our budget next year for the general fund, revenue, we projected to increase 1.73%, but the expenses, the way the administration brought us this budget, increased 6.29%. That's a problem. We're looking at burning through 43% of our reserves in 1 year just to balance next year's budget. And it took us 3 or 4 years to get to that point, so it's kind of disappointing. So current council members have been pushing back to the administration. We had a meeting Monday night, and we said, working with the mayor and the controller, the council especially the Finance Committee, we don't want to do these things next year because we don't have the money. And hopefully they're listening. I think they are. So that's it. My biggest priority is, I don't want to say everything comes back to the budget, but it really does. The city can only do what it can afford to do without going into debt, and I don't want to do that. We were able to take care of the former hospital site without debt, something we worked hard on. A great partnership with the city, the county, and even Reed Foundation. Great partnership. The administration wanted to cop out and do a 20-year bond, and we said no. There's got to be a better way to do this. So we took ownership, and through cash we had, revenue from the TIF district, money from the county, money from Reed, it's down, it's developable. Probably have a $2.5 million worth of property that can be sold to a developer and put that money back in those coffers for something else. So that's what a smart city does. And that's it. The city should be smart.
Yep.
One priority issue that you want to champion?
Choosing one priority issue is extremely difficult to do because we have the old Reed property to sell. We have the Elder Beerman property we need to make sure about. We need to make sure we do something for the downtown Richmond. We need to create jobs. But the thing that I guess that the most important is we need to have a balanced budget. We cannot continue to chip into our reserves in order to balance our budget. And what that means is we have to come into needs versus wants. It has to be the essential services first, and then after that, what we can do with the additional money that we have available.
Yeah.
But we have to have a balanced budget. We have to take care of the needs that our citizens need and deserve, police and fire, roads. We have to take care of those things first. So to me, it's the budget. It needs to be a balanced budget.
You're watching the In Focus Candidate Forum on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. Anybody else want to weigh in? Are we good there? We're going to come back to Paul, who's been sitting here calmly, writing some notes, and probably has some follow-ups in his head to some of the things that we're seeing.
Absolutely. Talking about increased funding, and I think the root of all problems comes from education. There's been a proposed food and beverage tax on prepared foods within the city. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, on adding a proposed food and beverage tax, and maybe the impact it could have on education and or improving our quality of place. So the overall impact of a food and beverage tax, do you support it? And education and quality of place.
I think we're here with Sue at the start.
Okay. I do support it. I probably would have preferred to see it be a will tax instead of food and beverage. But it is what it is. I think that, number one, that money cannot be baked into the budget. For instance, there was a lot of thought about that when the lottery started. But now we're to the point that state government and education can't be funded without lottery money. So, everybody's got to still buy their lottery tickets, and because we need that money. There are, I don't think that that money should be used to run the everyday government. I'm saying I think the safety of our citizens is first, and then providing them with utilities and fire and police is next. I think that money could be used to improve the parks, to do things like repair the municipal building, to do some of those one-time expense things that need to be done for a good, effective management of government. Because right now, some of the disrepair that is happening is costing more money. The other thing that I think it would be well spent on is a central garage, that all the mechanics should come together to a central place, and that would, in my opinion, allow us to probably not have as many mechanics on the payroll as we have, and utilize all the mechanics' different expertise.
Do you think any of that should go towards education to help solve other problems, whether it's...
Definitely.
Okay.
I know one of the things that the past council was very opposed to was the Human Rights Commission, but I believe it's something that we need, not so much for enforcement, but it should be geared toward educating people not to discriminate. I believe in the past it's been focused on enforcement, and we tend to think of it too much as just race, black and white, and it's not only gender, it's not only sexual preference, it's not only religion, but we have a lot of issues with sexual harassment in this community. And in my opinion, sexual I don't want to say predators, but there's a lot of prostitution in this city, and it makes me very sad. All you have to do is sit in the mornings at McDonald's, and you can see it all happening, and it's pretty rampant. So we need to address those kinds of issues. We need to have people understand that, my thing is all poor people have found some green in the field to boil with whatever meat's available to be able to feed themselves.
Okay, well, thank you.
Go.
Okay, personally, I don't want to see the people get more tax. I think we need to be responsible with the tax that we already do receive. If something like that were to pass, it needs to be a specific designation, and then there needs to be accountability, because I think that there's been other programs that there's responsibilities that are in place, but I don't want to see tax money be used for other things other than what it's been designated for. But I don't want to see us receive more tax. It's hard enough on families as it is, and I don't think it's necessary.
Next, food and beverage tax. When, and back up, talk about the will tax for a second. When most counties or many counties in Indiana did not pass a will tax, it wasn't long until the state added 10 cents on the fuel tax, and they made up that dollar, so we don't need that. You can't travel down a road without having road repairs done because the fuel tax worked really well. They have too much money, in my opinion. When the county several years ago, 7-8 years ago, the county applied to the state to do a food and beverage tax. And the state legislators gave us permission to institute a food and beverage tax, and you have to vote on it locally. So they did the right thing. They formed a committee, and most of those people in that committee still exist. The chamber came out with a position statement, and it talked about tourism, development, and education. And then when that position statement came out, and when it went back to the county council, it wasn't long after that where the county decided they weren't even going to hear it. They didn't have a public hearing on food and beverage tax. They let it die. So now going forward, state legislators are going back and change the enabling legislation. If you ask the state for a food and beverage tax and you don't institute it within 90 days, you lose your permit. You have to start all over again. Wayne County is sitting out there still grandfathered in, so we don't have to go through all that, fortunately, if we want a food and beverage tax. But I think The best use for anything, fund accounting. So think about fund accounting. If we're going to tax prepared food for people coming into our city, either living in our city or coming into the city, that money should be used for tourism and development so that it continues to cycle over, just as the gas tax is used for roads and streets. Just as we use some of the tobacco tax we get, and there's education, so there's education to stop smoking. So I think we should do it for that. I don't think, if there's some left over, well, the problems is you have this committee, and the committee has to decide how it is spent. So once you enable the food and beverage tax, the committee will decide how it's spent. Talking with the county, our counterparts at the county recently, actually on this same subject, it sounds like the only way they would entertain the idea is if you use it as a way it was intended originally, and that is you find some big project to do that helps tourism and development, and you bond it, and you use that revenue stream to pay for it for 10 or 20 years. And then once that's done, you decide whether or not to continue the food and beverage tax or start it over. A lot of City of Muncie did that. So when you go to McDonald's up there and pay an extra penny for a pop, that's paying for that Horizon Convention Center. I'm not saying we need a convention center. I don't know what we need, but I do think it had to be tourism development. One of the things we actually could do, we're waiting on IDEM to tell us if the former hospital site on Chester Boulevard can be residential or not, leaning on probably not. So it could be a sports park, it could be something. There's 3 different ideas the city is floating around. And it is totally, absolutely possible that we could decide on this sports park that'll bring in more people, and a boutique hotel too for another reason, and bring in more revenue. And if we can't find a developer to do it, we end up doing it with the county as a partnership. We might exactly use that money to build this thing, such as what Westfield did with the sports park. So I don't know. But it's a great discussion. I want to continue to have discussion with the county. If the city enacts the food and beverage tax by itself, I think that would be a very bad idea. We need to partner with the county, just as we have on a lot of these big projects, and use that money together. Not a lot of the money would come from the county. There's not that many restaurants out in the county that do prepared food and beverage, but there's enough that we need to continue that partnership and work with them on something. But I would think, at the end of the day, we would use it for tourism and development.
Thank you. Larry?
First of all, I think we need to really investigate what it would bring into the city. And I'm with Ron. I don't believe the city should institute the food and beverage tax. I think it should be countywide if we're going to do it. I'm not for sure that I really want to have an additional tax at this time. But if we do have to do that, I think that it should go for something like developing the Reed property, the old Reed property. Because there's no way that we can take the Reed property and use our budget, the money that we have right now, and develop it into anything. If we try to use that, then we'll have to do away with some of our essential services, and we can't do that. Yeah. So, in my opinion, I would be opposed to it unless the county is willing to make it countywide.
Yvonne?
Well, this is one of those conversations. We cannot tax our way out of this. We have a vehicle that's available next week. It's called the Epic Grand Challenge, and what it does at Earlham is it takes staff, faculty, students, people who have expertise in these areas, like taxation, what to do with the Reed site, how to effectively, make a positive turnaround in the opioid crisis, and use those real city problems and give them to research teams so that they can do all the investigation that we can't do as individuals and come back with viable solutions. We have students who've been involved in this, solving global problems in their home countries, and now they're bringing it to Richmond. We have our first open meeting this week on Tuesday. So I would say, yes, if we have to do a food and beverage tax to generate some money right away, countywide, but if we can hold off for another year and actually get some solid research as to what are our options in those areas, I would be in favor of that. I happen to be the common denominator between the city and Earlham, so that's a relationship that we need to pursue for the sake of solving these problems.
You're watching the In Focus Candidate Forum on Whitewater Community Television's WCTV Channel 11. We are under 20 minutes. We have another chat question that we need to get in, so let's do that. Do you believe that there is a need to improve Richmond's public transportation options? If yes, what would you do to improve it? Do you believe that there's a need to improve Richmond's public transportation options? If yes, what would you do to improve it? Jane, we start with you.
Leave that question up a little bit. Definitely, there's a need to improve the Richmond's public transportation options. We went to a forum, meet and greet down at Bethany Community, and it's a community for mobility impaired adults. They don't even have sidewalks out in front of their facility. That really bothered me, and there's a real need for more transportation for the handicapped. I mean, there's a real lack of transportation in that way. So if you consider the people with physical limitations, the elderly of our community, they need help. And it's not an easy fix. It's not an easy thing to do because there's a lot required when you do transports. There's liability. There's everybody comes with different situations, and it's some people shy away from doing transportation because there's some tough needs there. I think it's something that we need to discuss. I think it's something that we need to work on so there is more mobility for different people who do not have transportation in the community or the means, for their limitations. So I'm not sure if I answered the question all the way, but I think it's something that we need to, it does need to be addressed.
We have Roseview Transit, these city buses, and one of the things that bothers me is it sees how empty they always are. There are very few ridership. So we have this opportunity available, and we also have the handicapped available. Just call the number and they'll come to your house, pick you up, load you up. I think Terry Quinter, Roseview Transit, does a great job. I don't know why it's underutilized other than looking at it. It doesn't look like it's fun. So maybe that's the piece that's missing to make it fun somehow, because they're out there running 6 days a week and there's so few people using them. Back to the sidewalks, we have some areas we need to build sidewalks in. One of the things we do on our tax abatements, when we give a business a tax abatement every year, they get a letter that encourages them to donate to our infrastructure fund 10% of the money they saved on their tax abatement to our sidewalk fund, and we do nothing but build sidewalks with that.
That's wonderful.
So we probably need to find more money to do more sidewalks in areas, especially if there's a home where sidewalks need to be built out front. The city needs to take care of that.
Yeah.
So you're probably going to bring up the bike path in a little while, or the multi-use path. Maybe, I don't know.
Me?
The multi-use path is there. This multi-use path is there. I don't call it a bike path because strollers, your electric scooter, anything, just get on there and use that thing. The federal government and the state and the city put a lot of money into it. I like to see more people using it. So, I don't know. What do I have to do? Do I have to put electric scooters out there with the app on my phone? Because I like those. Those are a lot of fun. We could do that. And maybe people would use it more and do something public. I don't know.
Okay. Public transportation.
I agree with Ron that those buses are underutilized, and I'm not for sure why they are underutilized. The only complaint that I've heard about them is that people would like to have them run a little later at night. And as far as the paratransit, that's something we definitely need to expand because the hours are too short and we don't have enough of them. And it seems like we have more and more handicapped people that need to use that service. And that service is free or asking for a donation. And I think that if the people want to have that, they're going to have to help to pay for it. Everything in this world can't be for free,
Right.
So they have to help pay for that. But we do need to expand it because of the fact that we have a lot of people that depend on that type of transportation, and we don't have enough of it available for the people.
Yvonne?
The question was improving transportation? I want to make sure.
The question was, does Richmond need to improve its transportation system?
Yes, it does. I think part of the underutilization of the Roseview Transit is people need it earlier before it's available, and they need it later, in the day. So I think that's why a lot of times you see empty buses route after route. because those people have to find other modes of transportation. So I'm not sure what we could do right now, implementing another program that would supplement that or extend the bus hours. That's another thing that we would need to be creative in our approach, and starting with the people that do use the buses and those that are eligible to find out why they're not being used and exactly what they need, because it's one thing for us to say, what we think would work, but if we're not the ones who need that service, we won't be able to address that effectively.
Let me say that public transportation needs to just be blown up. I mean, the way we think about it is the typical bus, you pay the fare, that type of thing. I know part of the reason why people don't use paratransit is because you can't call, a month in advance and schedule your doctor's appointment for a month away. Sometimes what we need is something different. Like right now, people take the bus to work, but then during the day, people are at work. And so there's a lot of use by people who have mental health issues, which I believe puts some people off because of the ridership. When ideas have come up, there's always a reason why we can't do that, or we tried it, but I think we tried it in more of a normal box. I know some of the things that some cities have done, there are particular places that need people picked up. And so what they've decided to use is a van, and that's big enough to go take care of the people at that particular place. Because what happens is then people who work in the afternoon or the evening shift take the bus to work, but they don't have a bus ride home. And I know that I receive complaints from lots of people who were walking home from work at 11 o'clock and midnight. So I think we have to put it out there. We've got to look at it, and we've got to be open-minded when we do.
You're watching the In Focus Candidate Forum on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. Before I start doing some of my quick follow-ups, I'm going to see what else your next question is, and we'll start with Ron on this one.
All right, certainly. And I know there's a lot of areas in Richmond that, may be underserved or underdeveloped, but I'm going to focus on the west side of Richmond right now. Kmart's getting ready to close end of this year. With the exception of Reed Health, with the redevelopment they're doing in the old Cub Foods building, what do you think the city can do to help spur development on the west side?
We're under 10 minutes, so we're going to ask you to keep your answers a minute and a half or less, please.
What can the city do? One of the things we need to finish doing is an overlay down that US Highway 40 corridor so that there's a development standard that would help. Right now it's kind of a mishmash and it's just kind of a mess. We need to finish that. And I think the master plan, the UDO, will do that, and that'll help.
Okay.
So we know what fits well where. As far as offering tax incentives to retail stores, we've never done that. Or the grocery store, we've never done that. But if the need arises and the information's available, I'm certain the city and council will help somebody do something. I agree the west side is underserved, but then, you see restaurants come and go because of not enough business. So there's the other side, the economic side, is if the people on the west side aren't using that service, it's not going to stay there. And that's another struggle too. If they're not going to utilize or shop at that store, the store doesn't last. Kmart's not closing all its stores. They're closing 100 right now, right? And they're closing the ones that aren't making them money for a reason. So, I don't know, maybe we need free bus rides out there, I don't know. How do you get people to shop at those stores instead of going to the bigger marts? It's their choice in a free market economy. And it's their choice to shop online and have stuff delivered to their home. So,
Okay.
The retail restaurants will help what we can, and we'll do everything we can zoning-wise, but I don't know how much more we can do until they want to participate.
Well, one of the things that needs to be on the west side is they need to have a supermarket in that area. When Cubs Foods was there, it seemed like they were doing very well. And then all of a sudden they just pulled out. But I think that one of the things the city's going to have to do is to change their tax abatement and their revolving loan fund so that they will handle retail, because that's what's going to have to go out there. It's not going to be industry, it's going to have to be retail. And it's difficult for us to say what we're going to do, since it's a privately owned piece of property and a private concern. They're going to do what they want to do out there as long as it fits within our zoning codes. So I think the city can help if someone wants to develop out there, and we can try to entice people to move out there. But I don't think that we can, as a city, can actually tell them what they're going to put out there.
Okay.
Is that for me? Okay. I've lived in larger cities, Dallas-Fort Worth area and Tulsa area. And one of the things that helps when it comes to the west side kind of scenario where that seems to struggle over and over again is to have some kind of central focus, a conference center, a convention center that other people would use, and have restaurants and shopping available as support, not as the main attraction. So we need something that's going to keep driving business to that area that requires these other supportive services, or it's going to continue to struggle over and over and over.
Sue?
I would say that the one thing we could do is pay for a survey of Richmond to see what people may want on the west side. But I agree. I think it needs to be a retail operation. I think it probably does need to be a grocery store, but we need to find out for sure what people would support.
Well, I know that when Warehouse Foods moved out of the west side of town, it just all went downhill. We loved Warehouse Foods. A friend of mine would talk about how they would even have singles night at Warehouse Foods. They built community. They did. They just had different things that they did, just kind of quirky things that they did with the people who frequented there. And I think that it would be wonderful if some kind of an awesome supermarket would move out there. They need groceries on that side of town. There's no, we have Walmart on the east side, Meijer on the north side, but on the west side it's lacking. And I would love to see retail stores and supermarket and things that attract people, and anything that would build community. Just bring some life over there. I'd love that.
One of the things we've done, we took the old Dana office building using certified tech park funds and brought in Wolverine Worldwide, so we're working to get more people working on that side of town. And Blue Buffalo, the Midwest Industrial Park, so we have thousands more people working on that side of town, so that helps. So hopefully, if we knew what they would support, we would help it come.
Years ago, Walmart had looked at the west side for putting one of their mini stores out there. If they would continue to do something like that, that would really enhance the west side, not only from just the Walmart area, but if they moved there, then other stores would also move in that same area. And that's what we need to do, is we need to get someone that's interested into moving to the west side and taking the leap. And if someone like the Walmart would put in a mini mart, not as big as the one we have on the east side, then I'm sure that the rest of the business would follow.
I think you're talking about one of their neighborhood markets. That's what they
Right.
call them.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be awesome.
Last question, quick yes or no, because we are under 4 minutes to go. Thank you all very much for agreeing to
you.
do this. The city has taken to using the slogan Richmond Rising. Do you believe it? Yvonne?
Yes, I do. I've watched Richmond go from rise to fall and rise to fall, and yes, I believe it's time that we're rising again.
Sue?
Yes.
Jane?
For me, I believe that we've done a lot of great things in Richmond. I think that there's a lot of positive things that have been happening, but I also believe that we need to make sure there's a firm foundation built under the rising process, and that is with the interaction with the individuals, the relationships, making sure that they stay intact while they're doing the process.
Yes, Richmond's rising on the economic front. All these new businesses coming in, new jobs, manufacturing, industrial jobs. Reed Health with the $350 million hospital out there, fairly new. So we have a lot of good assets, and we just continue to build on those and leverage all the opportunities we can.
Yes, being on the Economic Development Board, I can say that it is rising.
Thank you all. Yvonne
Thank
Washington,
you.
Sue Roberson, Jane Bumbalough, Ron Oler, Larry Parker, running on the at-large ticket. Paul Witte, thank you for spending part of your evening with us. Greatly
absolutely.
appreciate it. Nick Dunlap was unable to join us this evening. He is also running on the at-large ticket. Remember, if you go into the voting booth and you vote a straight party ticket, you still have to vote individually. For these folks, a straight party ballot does not elect the at-large folks. Voting is underway, early voting through November 4th. Voter registration office, 301 East Main Street. Get there. Get it done. In-person early voting, October 28th through November 1st. That's Monday through Friday from 10 to 7 at the Coleman Center and First English Lutheran Church. And then on Election Day, the Coleman Center, Mount Olive Baptist Church, First English Lutheran Church, First Baptist Church, and the Golay Center. Next week, we will have the In Focus Candidate Forum featuring candidates running for office for the city of Richmond. We will begin at 6 p.m. Before we get out of here, we need to say thank you and best of luck to a young lady who is currently sitting in our studio who has been with us for 9 years now. She did her high school internship with us. She did her college internship with us. She has been working with us part-time back and forth while she did some work down in Cincinnati at a broadcast station. She has gotten a full-time position with them, which will start on Sunday. So, congratulations, Sam. Thank you. We are incredibly proud of you and very happy for you. Some things that are taking place: 10-week initiative to get for the Get Outside Challenge with Cope Environmental Center and Reed Health. Get signed up and do that. Join in the world's largest earthquake drill that takes place tomorrow. Check out shakeout.org for more information. Did you say 15? Okay. Time to get out. Thank you very much for watching this week's In Focus program on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I wish you well. Have a good weekend.